Welcome back to Uncivil Law, where we dissect the tangled web of legal controversy and see who's really going to get away with it. Today, we're diving into a case that has huge political ramifications. We're talking about Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, Illinois, who's up to her neck in accusations of financial shenanigans, retaliations, and a whole bunch more. And as for the moment, at least, has gone missing. Is she the victim of a smear campaign, or is there something fishy going on? Let's get into it and see if we can separate fact from fiction. So here's where it all starts. Tiffany Henyard, elected as the mayor of Dolton, Illinois in 2021, was supposed to be the one to steer the ship. But instead of smooth sailing, it looks like the ship is about to hit an iceberg. The question is, did she grab the wheel and steer straight into the disaster, or is she merely an unlucky captain stuck with the sinking ship? The buzz around town, and by buzz I mean the mounting criminal evidence, is that Henyard might not just be incompetent, she might be downright criminal with taxpayer money. I'm talking about thousands spent on Amazon, Wayfair, and other retailers with very little to show for it and no public benefit. Now, call me skeptical, but when you're spending $33,000 in one day on Amazon, you've either got a really big shopping list or a really big problem. Let's dig into the specific allegation, shall we? First up, there's accusations of misuse of public funds. Henyard's been spending the town's money like a teenager with her parents' credit card. No receipt, no explanations, and no concern for consequences. We're talking about the village finances spiraling from a $5 million surplus to a $3.6 million deficit under her watch. In other words, $8.5 million has gone missing. If that doesn't raise some red flags, I don't know what will. Here's the thing, managing public funds is like playing with fire. You've got to be careful or you get burned. But as for Henyard, well, her behavior might be thought of as akin to an arsonist, tossing around matches without a second's thought. And now Dolton's financial house is going up in flames. The numbers don't lie, and they're painting a pretty grim picture of how this town's money has been handled, or mishandled as it were. Let's talk a little bit about the concept of fiduciary duty. This isn't just some mere abstract concept, it's the bedrock of public office and other responsibilities. When you're in charge of someone else's money, you're supposed to treat it like your own, with due diligence and care. So when we see the kind of spending that we've seen with this mayor, with no clear benefit and no accountability, it's not just a mistake, it's a breach of fundamental duty. Here's where the skepticism really starts to kick in. Henyard might try to argue those expenses were necessary for the public good, but honestly, I for one am not buying it. When you're racking up thousands on Amazon with no real oversight and no real public benefit, it doesn't exactly scream responsible governance. It screams something else entirely, like maybe someone's taking advantage of the situation for personal benefit. And speaking about advantage, let's talk about embezzlement. Now, embezzlement can be one of those legal terms that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? In plain English, it's when someone is trusted with someone else's money, say, for example, a mayor with a town's budget, and decides to dip into those funds for their own personal use. They convert someone else's money into their own. It's not just unethical, it's a crime. If Henyard was using public funds to buy personal items or fund her own lifestyle, that seems like a pretty textbook case of embezzlement. And we're not just talking about a little bit of money here and there, we're talking about some serious cash. Imagine you've been given the keys to the vault. Instead of keeping it safe, you're helping yourself to the contents. That's embezzlement, folks, and it comes with some pretty hefty penalties. We're talking prison time, fines, and a permanent black mark on that record. Let's be clear. Embezzlement isn't just a minor slip-up. It's the kind of thing that ruins careers and sends people to prison for long terms. If the evidence shows that Henyard was using public funds for personal gains, as so far seems apparent, she could be facing criminal charges that will end both her political career and her freedom, landing her behind bars. But wait, my folks, there's more allegations yet. Let's move on to claims of retaliation. If you thought the financial stuff was bad, just wait till you hear about this. Henyard is accused of going after people who dared to speak against her. Specifically, her former assistant and Dolton police officer say they were retaliated against for reporting some pretty disturbing stuff. Now, retaliation is one of those things that's not just plain illegal, it's also fundamentally wrong. It's like saying, if you tell on me, I'm going to make your life miserable, which sounds an awful lot like an extortion and witness tampering. And that's exactly what plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the mayor are claiming happened. They say in one of the several lawsuits that's currently ongoing regarding this mayor that the assistant was put on unpaid leave and eventually fired. And the police officer who backed her up, he says he was removed from Henyard's security detail in retaliation. This isn't just petty, it's dangerous. If these allegations are true, Henyard wasn't just trying to silence her critics, she was actively punishing them. And in the world of employment law, that's also a big deal. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire that's already burning out of control. But we now must move on to one of the most jaw-dropping parts of this entire saga, allegations of physical assault and battery. This is a doozy, folks. We're talking about a former assistant who said that she was assaulted by one of Henyard's allies during a Las Vegas trip on Henyard's behalf. Let's be real for a moment, people. If this is true, it's criminal. It's obstruction and witness intimidation. Assault and battery are serious charges, and if Henyard knew about it and tried to cover it up, that's not just negligent supervision, which could lead to civil liability in an employment complex, it's also complicity that suggests the possibility of a conspiracy leading to a criminal charge. It's like finding out there's a rat in your house and deciding to feed it instead of getting rid of it. And it's not just wrong, it's incredibly dangerous. And let's not sugarcoat this. If Henyard is involved in a cover-up, that could itself lead to even more legal trouble. We're talking about more lawsuits, further criminal charges, and a level of public outrage that could end her career for good. And just to add the cherry to this legal parfait, there's also the issue of administrative misconduct. If you thought administrative malfeasance and financial mismanagement and retaliation were bad, just wait till you hear about this. Henyard is accused of running the town like her own personal fiefdom, firing people who don't agree with her, changing the locks on Village Hall, kicking the public out of public meetings, and generally behaving like a dictator who's untouchable. Now, abuse of power is not just bad politics, it's bad law. When you're in a position of authority, you're supposed to use that power for the common good, not to settle personal scores. This could lead to charges of misuse of office and public malfeasance. But it seems like Henyard has been more interested in protecting her own interests than doing what's right for Dolton. And here's where skepticism of Dolton really comes into play. If all these allegations are true, it's not just a case of a mayor who's out of her depth, it's a case of a mayor who's actively abusing her power. And that kind of thing can lead to all kinds of serious consequences, from civil lawsuits to potential criminal charges, both on the state and federal level. So what does Mayor Henyard have in the way of potential defenses? Well, she could try to argue that everything she did was in the bounds of her authority as mayor. She could try to claim that spending was necessary and her employment actions were justified and just trying to keep everything smoothly. But as the mayor herself has apparently left town and is nowhere to be found at the moment, let's be honest. Do you think that kind of defense would really hold water? When you look into the evidence, it seems like Henyard's been using her position to benefit herself rather than the people she was supposed to serve. And with federal investigators now looking into possible corruption charges that could lead to federal time, it's clear that this probably isn't going to end up well for her. As much as I'd love to tie this up with a neat little legal bow, the reality is that this legal drama just seems to be getting started and is far from over. The Henyard story is still unfolding, and the final chapter has yet to be written. Whether she'll somehow come out of this unscathed or face serious legal repercussions remains yet to be seen, assuming, of course, that someone can actually find her. So far, what we have is a cliffhanger at the end of the season finale. You'll just have to tune in to see what happens next. All right, folks, what do you make of this legal roller coaster? Do you think Tiffany Henyard is uniquely guilty of these allegations, or is she rather just an Illinois politician? What's your take of the misuse of public funds? Was it a breach of fiduciary duty, or could there somehow be more to the story? And what about the retaliation and assault claims? How would you want to see these kinds of claims resolved? Drop your answers in the comments section below, and let's get the conversation started. Until next time, I've been Uncivil Law, and remember to keep it uncivil out there.